Sevek Anor had spent 11 years trying to prevent the next interstellar war. That was why, when the humans called his legislation an attempt to make them helpless, he felt insulted. The resolution for strategic equalization was not punishment, it was not conquest. It was not even, in Sevek's mind, particularly radical. Humanity had joined the Galactic Senate comparatively recently. In that short span, it had developed an alarming number of armed vessels, defense platforms, patrol groups, orbital fortifications, and military fabrication yards. None of those things had been used against another Senate member. That fact did not comfort Sevek. Weapons did not become safe merely because they had not been fired yet. He stood beneath the suspended voting lattice of the Senate Security Annex, while symbols from dozens of delegations glowed above him. The result had already been calculated. Approval, approval, approval. Again and again. The humans had allies, but even those allies were nervous. Human military growth had been too fast. Their ships were too adaptable. Their commanders trained for scenarios other civilizations considered absurd. Their defensive doctrine assumed that systems would fail, communications would disappear, officers would die, supply lines would collapse, and plans would become useless. To Sevek, that sounded less like defense and more like preparation for the end of civilization. He had spent 3 years writing a solution. The equalization resolution required humanity to surrender or permanently disable all purpose-built strategic weapons above a Senate-defined threshold: heavy ship batteries, planetary strike systems, long-range autonomous weapons, military attack craft, dedicated orbital defense platforms. The proposal did not eliminate Earth's navy. It merely reduced it to the same proportional defensive strength expected of newer member civilizations. At least, that was how Sevek had explained it. Then Earth's representative stood. Her name was Ambassador Sanaa Ilias. She wore no military insignia, no medals, no ceremonial sash. She simply looked towards Sevek from the human bench and asked one question. "Commissioner, what is the objective of your resolution?" Sevek blinked. "The text is available to your delegation. I've read the text." "Then I know what equipment you want removed. I'm asking what you want the removal to accomplish." The chamber had gone quiet. "So, the objective is to ensure humanity cannot threaten another Senate member through overwhelming force." "Correct. And if your restrictions are applied," Sevek answered carefully, "strategic parity, meaning that no member civilization should possess a unilateral capacity to intimidate its neighbors." Sanaa nodded once. "You believe humanity will no longer possess that capability. That is the purpose." The ambassador glanced down at something on her desk. For the first time, Sevek felt mildly uneasy. Not because she seemed angry, because she did not. "Earth requests certification," she said. A murmur passed through the translators. Sevek leaned forward. "Certification of what?" "Your assumption." Several delegates moved in their seats. Senna continued. "If this chamber intends to legislate that removing a defined set of objects will make humanity strategically safe, then Earth requests an objective demonstration that the premise is true." "You want to challenge the classification system?" "No." Her answer came immediately. "We'll accept every equipment definition exactly as written." That produced a different silence. Sevek's unease sharpened. Sana touched her console. A document appeared in the public record. "Earth will provide a vessel of your choosing from a list of non-military ships. Senate inspectors may remove every component that falls inside your prohibited categories. Human technicians will not interfere. Afterward, place that vessel in any standard Senate defensive certification exercise appropriate to its mass." Someone behind Sevek whispered. The ambassador heard it and turned slightly. "No concealed systems. No classified devices. No weapons disguised as tools. Your inspectors may dismantle the vessel if necessary." Sevek stared at her. "What does Earth intend to prove?" Sanaa finally looked directly at him. "Whether you're disarming our weapons, Commissioner?" A small pause. "Or whether you think you're disarming us?" The Senate accepted. Sevek insisted on it. Several advisors told him that accepting a human challenge was unnecessary. The resolution already had enough support. A public demonstration introduced risk where none existed. Sevek disagreed. If humanity wanted to prove the law wrong, then the safest response was to let them fail where everyone could see it. The vessel was selected by lottery from Earth's submitted registry. It was called Good Neighbor. Sevek hated the name immediately. It sounded designed for propaganda. Then he saw the ship and changed his mind. No propaganda office would have chosen something so ugly. Good Neighbor was a rescue cutter. Its hull was short and broad, built around a central pressure compartment with 2 engine assemblies mounted on outriggers. Its exterior was covered in maintenance panels, docking sockets, inspection markings, fold-away antennae, rescue lights, and the scratches of long service. It had spent most of its existence around civilian shipping lanes. It carried emergency atmosphere, medical compartments, hull patching equipment, tow systems, search sensors, portable shelters. Nothing impressive. The Senate inspection team worked for 2 days. They removed 6 systems. A defensive emitter, 2 high-output cutting assemblies whose energy levels exceeded the new regulation. A navigation override classified as potentially useful in autonomous attack profiles, a pair of countermeasure dispensers. The humans did not object. They actually helped. Sevik watched from behind the sealed observation window as a human technician pointed inspectors toward an access panel they had missed. That bothered him more than resistance would have. By the end, even the inspection chief looked frustrated. "Confirmed," she told Sevik. "No prohibited equipment remains, no concealed weapon compartments. None. Unregistered energy systems, none. Military software, removed. Offensive targeting packages, none were installed." Sevik looked through the window. A human man was sitting on the edge of the open cargo ramp, drinking something from a metal cup. He had introduced himself earlier as Alien Park, Civil Defense Certification Instructor, not Captain, not Admiral, not Special Forces. An instructor Sevik had checked. Park had spent 14 years training crews in emergency response and another 4 helping write civilian survival standards. He had never commanded a warship. Sevik went down to the hangar. Park looked up as he approached. "Commissioner, Mr. You understand what happens tomorrow? We fly a certification exercise. You will operate without weapons. That's the agreement. You will be evaluated by Senate systems, not human ones. Also the agreement, if you fail." "Park, Elian is fine. Sevik is not." The human considered this, then nodded. "Commissioner?" Then Sevik looked at the open ship. "The demonstration supports the resolution." Park took another drink. "Yes, you seem unconcerned. I'm very concerned." Sevik studied his face. Humans were difficult. Many species had obvious biological stress signals. Skin changed shade. Feathers lifted. Chemical markers appeared. Body temperature shifted. Humans had some signs, but they also possessed an irritating ability to look calm while being very much otherwise. "About losing?" Sevik asked. Park shook his head. "About somebody turning a safety exercise into a political contest. It is already political. That's what worries me." Sevik folded his upper arms behind his back. "You volunteered." "No. Earth volunteered. And you?" "I was assigned. Against your wishes." Park almost smiled. "No, they asked, and I said yes. Then that is volunteering. Not quite the same thing where I come from." Another irritating human answer. Sevik changed direction. "Do you believe you can defeat the test?" Park's expression changed slightly. "That depends on what you mean by defeat. You protect the assigned target. Then that's what we'll try to do. And if you cannot, then we fail. No bravado, no threat." Sevik found himself unexpectedly dissatisfied. "You don't sound like someone sent here to prove humanity cannot be disarmed." Park looked into his cup. "Commissioner, I don't think that's why they sent me." "Then why?" The human looked toward Good Neighbor. "Maybe they think you're asking the wrong question." The null yard had been built for accidents. That was what made it useful. It occupied a vast cylinder of controlled orbital space beyond the inhabited sections of the Senate complex. Inside it floated decommissioned station modules, dummy vessels, sensor buoys, rescue targets, automated drones, and disposable structural frames. Civilian crews trained there. Security forces trained there. Emergency services used it to simulate fires, collisions, decompression, navigation loss, communication failure, and mass evacuation. Sevik had chosen it because there would be no human control over the environment. The first exercise was intentionally simple. A passenger module carrying simulated occupants had lost propulsion. 3 automated hostile drones would approach it. Good Neighbor had to prevent them from obtaining a valid destruction lock for 10 minutes. The drones carried no real weapons. The exercise was adjudicated electronically. Everyone expected the rescue cutter to lose. It had no defensive emitter, no countermeasures, no military targeting software. Its high-output cutting systems had been removed. Park sat at the front of the cutter with 4 crew members. Sevik watched from the control gallery with representatives from 19 Senate species. Exercise beginning, announced the yard controller. The passenger module began drifting. 3 hostile markers appeared. Good neighbor moved. Slowly. That was the first surprise. Sevik had expected human aggression. Instead, Park flew directly to the disabled module and matched its motion. The rescue cutter attached itself to the larger structure. "What are they doing?" asked Senator Veluwan. "Docking," the controller said. "Why?" No one answered. The hostile drones accelerated. Park did not detach. A simulation clock appeared. 9 minutes, 40 seconds, 9 minutes 30. The drones separated, approaching from different vectors. Then the passenger module began rotating. Sevik leaned forward. Not quickly. Not dangerously. The rescue cutter was using its own maneuvering authority to turn the much larger module. The controller checked her display. Legal. For what purpose? Sevik asked. "I don't know." The module continued rotating until its thickest structural section faced the first drone. The drone's line of sight disappeared. It adjusted. The module adjusted. The second drone approached. Good neighbor fired something. Several delegates jerked upright.
"Violation," someone shouted. "No," said the controller. A cluster of emergency locator balloons unfolded into space. Bright, reflective, designed to mark damaged ships for rescue teams. Dozens of them spread around the passenger module. The drone sensors hesitated.
Not fooled exactly. Delayed. The human cutter pulled the passenger module through the expanding field. The third drone found a clear angle. A large piece of debris moved between them. Sevik stared. "Did they just move that wreckage?" "Tow line," said the controller. "That is not a weapon. It's rescue equipment." The drone changed position. The wreckage changed position with it. 6 minutes remained. The humans were not attacking. That was the disturbing part. They were arranging, moving, blocking, pulling, turning. Every action had a civilian justification. Every action made the drone's task harder. The first drone finally obtained a targeting solution. The system flashed amber, then red, lock lost. What happened? The controller frowned. The rescue cutter vented coolant. At the drone. No. Into the space between them. "Is that permitted?" She checked. "It's an emergency thermal management function." Sevik felt his jaw tighten. 3 minutes. The drones became more aggressive. The humans became calmer. Park's voice was available over the observation feed. No shouting. No dramatic orders. "Bring the bow around." "Easy. Hold that. Target module secure. Beacon cluster 3 is drifting. Let it. Drone 2 coming high. I see it." Simple phrases, ordinary phrases. The clock reached 0. The yard turned green. Tachet survived. The gallery remained silent. Park's voice came over the official channel. "Null yard control, good neighbor. Confirm exercise complete." The controller looked at Sevik. He did not know why. Perhaps she wanted permission to say it. "Confirmed?" she answered. "Exercise complete. Copy? Requesting recovery clearance for your training hardware." Sevik looked at the screen. The humans were already collecting the emergency balloons. Senator Veluwan spoke quietly. "They won with garbage." Sevik turned. "No." Veluwan looked at him. Sevik watched the rescue cutter tow the debris back toward its marked storage region. They survived with rescue equipment. He did not yet understand why that distinction troubled him. By the next morning, the recording had spread across the Senate network. Public interest exploded. Sevik hated that. This was supposed to be an objective certification, not entertainment. Commentators slowed the footage down. Engineers argued over legality. Security analysts insisted the scenario had been too easy. Human networks reacted differently. They criticized Park, not for winning, for wasting coolant. That detail reached Sevik during breakfast. He read the translation twice, then summoned his aide. "Is this satire?" The aide checked. "No, Commissioner. Humans are complaining that he used too much coolant. Apparently, some emergency response personnel believe he could have achieved the same result with less." Sevik stared at the report. "That is their objection. One of them. What are the others?" The aide scrolled. "One engineer says the tow angle placed unnecessary stress on the passenger module. Anything else? Someone believes the beacon deployment was inefficient." Sevik stopped her. He no longer wanted to know. At midday, the security committee met. Several supporters of the resolution wanted the test repeated at greater difficulty. Savick agreed, not because he was angry, because one successful exercise proved very little. The second scenario was designed around rescue under interference. 5 drones, 2 disabled vessels. Restricted propulsion fuel, no external communication. The human crew would receive incomplete information at the start. Park was informed. He asked only one question. Are the simulated occupants equally distributed between the 2 targets? The controller said no. One carried approximately 4 times as many. Park nodded, understood. Savick watched him carefully. Does that change your strategy? It changes our priority. You're willing to sacrifice the smaller vessel? Park frowned. That's not what I said. You cannot be in 2 places. No, then you must choose. The human looked at him for several seconds. Commissioner, rescue work is mostly choosing what problem you solve first. The words stayed with Savick. He had written legislation in similar terms. Strategic policy was also the art of deciding which danger deserved priority. He wondered briefly whether that was the first thing he and Park actually understood about each other. The exercise began. This time the humans did not produce an elegant solution. They struggled. One engine assembly overheated. A drone achieved a partial lock. A rescue pod was electronically declared damaged. The observation gallery became louder. Several senators relaxed. Savick did not. He had begun watching Park instead of the score. The human was not trying to dominate the board. He kept shifting resources toward whichever simulated life was in greatest immediate danger. At one point, doing so gave a drone a nearly perfect approach. Savick expected Park to evade. He did not. Good Neighbor placed itself between the drone and the passenger craft. The targeting system marked the human vessel as threatened. What is he doing? Veluwan demanded. The controller answered without looking up, using his own hull as obstruction. Then he loses, possibly. The timer ran. The drone tracked Good Neighbor. Another human crew member spoke. 3 seconds, Park said. Enough. The rescue pods detached from the passenger craft. The drones had been drawn out of alignment. The pods scattered toward the yard's protected boundary. The larger vessel was no longer the real target. Its passengers were. Savick felt something cold move through his abdomen. The human had surrendered the ship, not the people. The exercise ended with Good Neighbor electronically destroyed. The crew had lost their vessel. All simulated passengers survived. The gallery erupted into argument. Failure, said one senator. Success, said another. The objective was vessel defense. No, the objective was occupant survival. The cutter was destroyed. The occupants weren't. Savick looked toward the yard controller. What is the official result? She hesitated. Under civilian emergency standards? Yes, full success. And under security combat standards? Another hesitation. Mission lost with protected population preserved. Veluwan made an exasperated sound. That is contradictory. Park's voice came over the channel. Welcome to emergencies. For the first time, several delegates laughed. Savick did not. He understood something he had missed the previous day. The humans were not interpreting the exercise as combat. That was why their behavior looked strange. The Senate had created opponents. The humans kept seeing problems. A drone was a problem. A damaged ship was a problem. A blocked line of sight was a problem. A failing engine was a problem. 1,000 simulated passengers were a problem. Problems could be moved, delayed, separated, redirected, survived. The humans did not need to destroy the thing causing the problem if another solution existed. That should have made Savick feel safer. Instead, he slept badly. On the 3rd day, he visited Good Neighbor again. Park was beneath an open panel with half his body inside the wall. Savick waited. Eventually, the human slid backward and sat up. Commissioner, what are you repairing? Nothing? Savick looked at the open panel. Then why is the ship open? Inspection. Of what? Everything the last exercise shook loose. Savick looked inside. Wires, pipes, brackets, nothing he understood. Your vessel was simulated as destroyed. Yes. You do not seem troubled. It was a simulation. You sacrificed it. We evacuated the passengers. You sacrificed yourself as well. Park wiped his hands. In the exercise. You would do that in reality? The human became very still. Savick immediately regretted asking. Not because the question was improper, because he suddenly suspected the answer would not help him. Park stood. In reality, Commissioner, I would try very hard to find another option. That is not an answer. It is the only honest answer. People who claim they know exactly what they do in a disaster usually haven't been in enough disasters. Sevik examined him. You train people for them. Yes. Then what do you teach? Keep thinking. That is all? No. But it's the part everything else depends on. Sevik looked through the open hangar toward the cutter. Human military doctrine says similar things. Probably redundancy, initiative, independent decision-making. Those aren't military inventions. No. Park smiled faintly. Commissioner, humans were fixing broken things a very long time before we had spaceships. There it was again, the uncomfortable widening. Sevik's resolution categorized weapons. Park kept turning the conversation toward people. Sevik changed tactics. If every military system were removed tomorrow, how dangerous would humanity remain? Park leaned against the hull. To whom? Anyone? That's too broad. An enemy. Depends on the enemy. Someone attempting to conquer Earth. Park's expression flattened. Very? Even without weapons? Yes. The answer arrived without pride. Sevik felt the cold sensation again. Why? Because by the time you're talking about somebody conquering Earth, you've stopped asking whether our equipment is dangerous. What are you asking? Whether we intend to let them. Sevik stared. Park continued before he could respond. That's not a threat, Commissioner. It sounded remarkably like one. You asked. Then explain it. Park sighed. All right, your resolution assumes capability lives in objects. Remove the object, remove the capability. Generally, yes. Sometimes that's true. And with humans, sometimes. Not enough? Park shook his head. Not enough for what you want. Sevik glanced toward the open vessel. What do I want? Helplessness. The word offended him again. I want stability. Then write a stability law. I did. No. You wrote an equipment law and assumed it produces stability. Sevik's voice hardened. You are not a legislator. No. A strategist? No. A military officer? No. Then perhaps you should avoid telling the Senate what its resolution means. Park nodded. Fair. That agreement irritated Sevik more than argument would have. Then the human added, but tomorrow you're going to increase the difficulty again. Sevik said nothing. And when you do, Park continued, you're going to remove another thing you think we depend on. Still Sevik said nothing. Communication. Probably Sevik's eyes narrowed. How did you know? Park shrugged. That's what I'd test next. Sevik left the hangar with his thoughts in worse condition than when he entered. The third exercise removed communication between the 5 human crew members. The Senate fitted partitions inside Good Neighbor and assigned each operator isolated information. No one person would see the complete tactical picture. Sevik expected confusion. Instead, the crew became slower but not confused. Each person acted within clearly understood boundaries. The pilot moved the ship. The engineer protected power and pressure. The rescue specialist tracked simulated occupants. Park coordinated only through prearranged status lights and simple mechanical signals. No speeches, no central brilliance, no heroic commander. The humans had trained for losing communication. That fact disturbed the military observers. What species trains civilian rescue crews for command isolation? Someone asked. A human observer seated near the back answered, one whose radios sometimes break. The fourth exercise removed navigation support. The fifth introduced false sensor returns. The sixth began with Park officially incapacitated and another crew member placed in charge. They passed all 3, not perfectly, sometimes badly, but the objective population survived. Every time, by the end of the week, the political conversation had changed. Nobody was discussing whether Good Neighbor possessed secret weapons. It plainly did not. They were discussing whether the Senate's definition of disarmament had ever addressed the correct variable. Sevik supporters demanded one final exercise. This one would be designed by Senate fleet security, not civilian emergency controllers. Sevik approved it. Then he read the scenario and nearly canceled it. A Senate security cruiser would participate. Real crew, real ship, weapons electronically locked. Its objective would be to penetrate the null yard and establish a simulated destruction solution against a protected station core. Good Neighbor would defend the core. The cruiser had engines many times more powerful, military sensors, armored systems, a professional security crew. The humans would retain the same stripped rescue cutter. No weapons would be returned. Sevik found Park in the briefing room. The human read the scenario, then read it again. This isn't a rescue certification. No, it's a combat exercise. Technically, and the ship we're facing is crude. Yes. Park placed the tablet down, then I want their captain in the room. Sevik hesitated. Why? Because I'm not agreeing until I hear how their safety rules work. The captain was summoned. Her name was Captain Isara Day. She had commanded Senate security vessels for 26 years. Park asked her about collision tolerances, emergency separation, reactor safeties, crew extraction, abort authority. Sevik listened. Not one question concerned the cruiser's weapons. Finally, Isara asked, "Are you planning to ram my ship?" "No." "Then why do you care about structural separation limits?" "Because I don't know what I'm planning yet." The captain stared at him, then unexpectedly laughed. "I like him." Sevik did not at that moment. The final exercise began before the largest audience in Nolyard history. The security cruiser entered from the far boundary. Good Neighbor waited beside the station core. The size difference was embarrassing. Sevik heard commentators whispering. The cruiser advanced. The rescue cutter moved away from the protected structure. "Wrong direction," Veluin said. Sevik did not answer. He had stopped assuming that. The cruiser followed. Park accelerated, not toward safety, toward a field of decommissioned training structures. The cruiser maintained distance. Its military sensors did not lose the cutter. Its crew did not become confused by locator balloons. It ignored thermal interference. It was built for hostile environments. For the first 2 minutes, nothing the humans tried mattered. Sevik felt relief, then shame at feeling relief. The cruiser pushed past Good Neighbor. The station core came into view. Simulated targeting began. Park turned back. Too late. The cruiser needed only a few more seconds. Then the protected station transmitted an emergency code. The cruiser's target lock vanished. Captain Isara's voice snapped over the channel. "Why did my fire control simulation abort?" Nolyard Control answered, "Investigating." Sevik stood. "Did the humans interfere with its computers?" "No intrusion detected." Park's cutter moved alongside the cruiser. A docking indicator appeared. The gallery exploded with voices. "They're boarding?" "No." "Unauthorized contact." "No contact yet." Captain Isara spoke again. "Park, what did you do?" The human answered calmly. "Nothing to your computer. My system has declared your station a protected rescue zone." "Yes. Why?" Park's cutter attached a standard emergency beacon to the exterior of the training structure. Sevik understood before most of the room did. The station had been declared in catastrophic failure. Under Senate safety law, any inhabited structure broadcasting that code automatically entered protected rescue status. Security vessels were prohibited from discharging weapons into it until personnel status was verified. The cruiser had obeyed its own safety architecture. Veluin shouted, "That's exploiting regulations." Captain Isara answered before Park could. No. Everyone fell quiet. Her voice was hard. "That's following them." The exercise clock continued. The cruiser began manual verification. Park moved again. He brought Good Neighbor alongside the larger vessel's forward section. 2 rescue arms extended. Sevik's pulse accelerated. "What now?" The controller stared at her readings. "They've detected a simulated thermal fault aboard the cruiser." "There isn't one." "There is now." Sevik looked sharply at her. "What does that mean?" Fleet security inserted random internal casualties into the scenario. The human cutter received the same alert. The cruiser had suffered a simulated engineering emergency. Minor, irrelevant to its mission. Except Good Neighbor was a rescue ship. Park hailed Captain Isara. "Security cruiser, we have your thermal warning. Do you require assistance?" There was a pause. "This is an adversarial exercise, I know. You are offering assistance to the vessel attacking your objective. You have a crew. They are simulated casualties. So are the people on the station." Another pause. Sevik felt every eye in the gallery fixed on the exchange. Captain Isara answered. Assistance accepted. Veluin almost rose out of his seat. "What is she doing?" Sevik finally understood. Following procedure, Good Neighbor docked. The cruiser could have refused. But the scenario had become tangled with Senate's own safety laws. A vessel reporting internal casualties gained rescue obligations. Once physically connected, safety interlocks restricted high acceleration maneuvers. The humans had not hacked them, had not forced them, had not damaged the cruiser. They had simply entered its emergency response architecture. The cruiser detached. Its attack window was shrinking. Captain Isara changed approach. She would ignore the rescue cutter and complete the objective from another angle. Park did not chase. He returned to the station. The cruiser accelerated. Then the station moved. Sevik heard someone gasp. The humans had connected towing lines while everyone watched the cruiser. The protected core was not powered, but it did not need to be. Good Neighbor began pulling it out of the designated target zone. Slowly. Painfully slowly. Captain Isara laughed over the channel. "You cannot tow that thing fast enough?" Park replied. "Probably not." The cruiser changed course. The station's simulated occupants began evacuating. Small rescue capsules emerged. The security cruiser now had multiple moving targets. It needed only the core. The core was still valid. It aligned. The human cutter detached. Sevik realized Park had stopped trying to save the station. Again, he was saving the people. The cruiser obtained a destruction solution. Station core lost, announced the yard. Half the gallery cheered. Then the second result appeared, simulated casualties, 0. The cheering weakened. But the exercise was not over. The security cruiser had been assigned a secondary condition. After destroying the core, it had to exit the yard within a fixed interval. Captain Isara turned her ship. Nothing happened. Her engines remained at minimum output. She tried again. Control. The controller stared at the board. "Your propulsion safeties are active." Reason? A diagram appeared. During rescue docking, Good Neighbor had identified a legitimate maintenance discrepancy caused by the scenario's simulated thermal fault. Under Fleet Security's own emergency standards, the cruiser could not execute high-output maneuvering until an external inspection cleared the affected region. Park. Captain Isara's voice had changed. Not angry. Almost delighted. "What did you do? Inspected your ship? You locked my engines?" "No." "Then why can't I accelerate?" "Your ship doesn't think it's safe. Can you clear it?" "Yes." A long silence. Sevik could hear his own breathing. Captain Isara asked the question that changed the entire hearing. "Will you?" Park looked toward the station's escaping rescue capsules, then back at the cruiser. "Once your people are safe, they're simulated. So are mine." Isara laughed again. This time the sound carried through every feed in the Senate complex. "Control, I concede the exercise." The yard flashed green. Defensive objective, a population preserve. Hostile vessel. Mission incomplete. Prohibited weapons used, 0. Nobody spoke. Sevik looked through the glass at Good Neighbor. The rescue cutter floated beside the much larger security cruiser. Small, scarred, ugly, disarmed, and somehow more frightening to him now than a battleship would have been. Because a battleship would have proved his resolution right. This proved something else. The Senate reconvened the following morning. Every seat in the security annex was occupied. Public viewing exceeded anything Sevik had seen during his career. He stood at his place beneath the voting lattice. For 3 years he had believed the issue was quantity. Humanity had too many weapons. Then he had believed it was quality. Human systems were too adaptable. Then he had believed it was doctrine. Their crews trained too broadly. Now he understood that each explanation was still incomplete. The dangerous thing was not any single technology. It was the habit connecting them. Humans treated systems as temporary, plans as temporary, roles as temporary, failure as expected. A rescue cutter was a rescue cutter until the moment survival required it to become something else. A pilot was a pilot until the engineer needed help. A ship was valuable until the people inside it were safer without it. An enemy vessel was still full of people. A defeat could preserve the actual objective, and a regulation written for safety could become part of the solution without being broken. Sevik activated his microphone. "I request the floor." It was granted. He looked toward the human delegation. Ambassador Sana Alias sat beside Elian Park. Park looked deeply uncomfortable in formal clothing. Sevik almost appreciated that. "I sponsored the resolution for strategic equalization." Sevik began. "I continue to believe that unchecked military concentration is dangerous." No one moved. "I also believe legislation must be capable of achieving its stated purpose." He paused. Our stated purpose was not to count human weapons. The words were harder than expected. Our stated purpose was to reduce the possibility that humanity could respond to coercion with overwhelming force. Sevik looked at the voting lattice. The certification demonstrated that our model equated stored equipment with usable capability. That equation is incomplete. Senator Veluun immediately requested recognition. Granted. Commissioner, are you claiming humans cannot be regulated? No. Then what are you claiming? Sevik thought of Park beneath the open maintenance panel. Keep thinking, he answered. I am claiming that confiscating designated machines does not produce the strategic condition this resolution promises. Veluun's voice sharpened. Because humans will turn civilian equipment into weapons. Park visibly winced. Sevik noticed. No. That surprised the chamber. No, Sevik repeated. That description is also inaccurate. He looked toward the human. Mr. Park, would you answer a question? Park stood. If I can. During the final exercise, did you consider the rescue cutter a weapon? No. The tow system? No. The emergency beacon? No. The docking equipment? No. The safety regulations you used? Park almost smiled. Definitely not. Then how did you defeat a security cruiser? Park thought for a moment. We didn't. The chamber stirred. Veluun made a frustrated gesture. The result clearly says, we didn't defeat Captain Isara, Park said. We stopped her from completing the exercise objective. That is the same thing. No, Park's voice remained quiet. That's the mistake. Sevik felt the room change. Park continued. If we decided our job was to defeat the cruiser, we probably would have lost. We had a rescue cutter. She had a security ship. Captain Isara was watching from the observer section. She nodded. Our job was to protect the people assigned to us. You lost the station? Veluun said. Stations can be rebuilt. You immobilized the cruiser. We found a safety issue. You exploited it. We respected it. You manipulated its captain into accepting rescue assistance. Park looked genuinely confused. She had casualties? Simulated casualties? We had simulated passengers? A few delegates made quiet sounds of amusement. Veluun sat back. Sevik spoke again. Mr. Park, if the Senate removed every purpose-built human weapon tomorrow, would Earth become defenseless? The room went completely still. Park looked toward Ambassador Ilias. She made no gesture, no permission, no warning. The human answered for himself. No. Would your civilization still be dangerous to an attacker? Yes. Why? Park looked across the alien faces. When he spoke again, the answer was not dramatic. That made it worse because defense isn't an object. Sevik said nothing. Park continued. You can take equipment away. Sometimes you should. Humans regulate weapons too. Several delegates shifted. But if somebody comes to our home intending to hurt people, then the problem isn't whether a particular machine is available. What is the problem? Sevik asked. Park looked at him. We still have to get those people through it alive. The silence after that sentence was enormous. Sevik finally understood why humanity had sent a rescue instructor instead of an admiral. An admiral would have made the issue military. A weapon demonstration would have made the issue technological. A threat would have made the issue political. Earth had sent a man whose profession was surviving bad situations without being allowed to choose the situation. The resolution had asked whether humans could be separated from their weapons. Earth's answer was yes, quite easily. That was what terrified him, because the next question was whether doing so achieved anything, and the answer was no. Ambassador Elias stood. Commissioner, Earth is prepared to deliver its formal response. Sevik returned to his place. The chamber waited. Sanaa carried no tablet this time. No presentation appeared. No fleet coordinates, no diagrams, no classified technology. Just a human woman standing at a microphone. The Galactic Senate asked Earth to accept the Strategic Equalization Resolution. She said, we considered it seriously. Her eyes moved through the chamber. We share the concern behind it. Concentrated military power is dangerous. Fear between civilizations is dangerous. An arms race without limits is dangerous. Sevik heard murmurs of surprise. Sanaa continued, but the resolution was built around a promise it cannot keep. She looked toward the null yard displays. You were told that if you remove enough equipment, you can remove humanity's capacity to resist. Nobody moved. You cannot. There it was. No anger. No raised voice. You may confiscate a weapon. You may dismantle a ship. You may outlaw a system. Those are political decisions, and political decisions can be negotiated. She paused. But no government represented here has the authority to require a civilization to become helpless. Sevik felt his skin tighten. Earth will accept inspections. Several delegates turned toward one another. We will accept transparency agreements. We will negotiate fleet ceilings. We will discuss exclusion zones, autonomous system restrictions, launch notifications, shared monitoring, and mutual reductions. That was not the reply anyone had expected. Then Sanaa's voice hardened by a degree. What Earth will not accept is a legal requirement that our safety depend on our inability to respond. She looked toward Sevik. You asked us to disarm. A breath. So we did. The null yard result appeared above her. Prohibited weapons used, 0. Another line appeared. Protected population survived, 100%. Then the security cruiser result. Attack objective fails. Sana let everyone read it. That was our reply. Sevik felt the same cold sensation he had experienced during the first exercise. But it had changed. It was no longer fear of what humans possessed. It was fear of how badly the Senate had misunderstood possession itself. Sana finished. If peace requires us to become less capable of saving our people, then it isn't peace we're discussing. She stepped away from the microphone. Earth rejects the resolution. No threat followed, no deadline, no warning. None was necessary. The vote to return the resolution to committee failed. That surprised Sevik. He had expected delay. Instead, delegations began withdrawing support completely. Some did so because the law was ineffective, others because the human demonstration had frightened them, several because Sevik himself now opposed his own text. Veluwan requested a revised vote. The voting lattice illuminated. The first rejection appeared, then another. Then another. Sevik watched 3 years of work disappear in less than 5 minutes. He expected grief. Instead, he felt relief. The resolution had been designed to prevent a future disaster. Keeping it after learning it would not work would have transformed caution into pride. He would not do that. When his symbol appeared, he voted against. Across the chamber, Elian Park watched the lattice. Afterward, Sevik found him outside the annex. You won, Sevik said. Park looked uncomfortable. Did we? The resolution is dead. That wasn't really the point. Humans keep saying that after winning. Park laughed. Sevik surprised himself by doing the same. They walked toward the transit gallery. Below them, the null yard was already being reset for ordinary civilian training. Was the demonstration planned to produce this outcome? Sevik asked. Earth hoped you'd reconsider. That was not my question. Park rubbed the back of his neck. The broad idea was planned, and the individual exercises? No. The cruiser? No. The safety lock? Definitely no. Sevik stopped walking. You did not know that would happen? We knew something would happen. That is an absurd statement. Emergencies are generous that way. Sevik stared at him. Park spread his hands. We train the process, Commissioner, not the miracle. That sentence disturbed Sevik enough that he remembered it for years. The Strategic Equalization Resolution was replaced months later, not by another disarmament law, by a mutual risk framework. Older Senate powers became subject to the same transparency requirements as younger civilizations. Fleet concentrations had to be declared. Certain autonomous systems were restricted. Inspection standards were reciprocal. No civilization had to surrender its fundamental ability to protect inhabited territory. Earth accepted. So did nearly everyone else. Sevik chaired the first review session. Ambassador Elias attended. Park did not. He had already returned to civil defense work. Sevik learned that from a short message. No ceremony, no title. Park was training rescue crews around a newly settled system where a chain of cargo habitats had opened. The message ended with, "Try not to write any laws while I'm gone." Sevik stared at it for a full 10 seconds. Then deleted his first reply. His second was shorter. No promises. 3 years later, Sevik visited Earth. Not for politics. A Senate Emergency Management Conference was being hosted in a coastal city. On his second afternoon, he toured a training center. Human students were working around a damaged atmospheric vehicle. Nothing was going correctly. That apparently was intentional. An instructor kept making the scenario worse. Power failure, then blocked access, then lost communication. Then one simulated crew member became unavailable. Sevik watched the students argue, reorganize, and continue. A young technician finally looked toward the instructor and said, "Are you going to break everything?" The instructor answered, "Not everything. What's left?" "You?" The students groaned. Sevik did not. He understood. That evening he walked alone along the harbor. Human rescue boats moved across the dark water. Small lights, ordinary engines, no weapons, no military formations, no strategic platforms, just vessels built to go toward trouble when everyone else wanted to move away from it. For years, the Galactic Senate had measured civilizations by what they could deploy. Ships, weapons, energy, range, mass. Humanity had forced them to add a harder category. What remained when deployment failed? Sevik stopped beside the water. A rescue boat turned toward shore. Someone aboard threw a line to a waiting crew member. The line crossed the dark air, was caught, and pulled tight. A simple tool, a simple act. Nothing threatening about it. Sevik smiled despite himself. The Senate had once tried to disarm humanity. Only afterward had it understood the problem. Humans had never believed survival belonged to the weapon in their hands. They believed it belonged to the hands.